Ladies and gentlemen, this is segment number 10, and this is where the Lord God says that He saw that it was good. The Lord God looked and saw that it was good. Verse number 10 of Genesis, with my Poindexter glasses on, the Lord God said He saw something was good, and now we're about to find out what verse 10 of the book of Genesis really means. Verse number 10 in the book of Genesis, and God called the dry land, which we have to zoom in on, otherwise you can't see the dry land. And God called the dry land, this segment here underneath the dry land, earth. He called this earth, and this is where three different types of vegetation are living and growing, which will be discussed before verse 17 of the book of Genesis. So verse 10, once again, and God called the dry land earth, where things grow. Earth. Earth is where things grow, and this is the segment of the book of Genesis, verse 10, that is represented as earth. And the gathering together of the waters, underneath the earth. Allow the water to come up through the banner as a filtration system and allow the different forms of vegetation to grow. And the gathering of waters called He seas. These are the seas, the salt water, where things grow, or the original origin of life was supposed to have come from the seas. He called the gathering together of the waters seas. These are all interconnected via this body of water underneath the banner. Now, land vegetation wouldn't necessarily grow with salt water. So the salt water is filtered through the banner as a filtration system. And God saw that it was good. So He gathered the waters together under the earth, which is here. He created a type of filtration system that turns the seawater into fresh water, exactly how the seawater along the shoreline of any body of water that is salted on earth acts as a filtration system between the bodies of water and the vegetation that exists on the dry land adjacent to the bodies of water that are salted. Moving into verse 11, and God said, let the earth bring forth grass. Now here, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you something. It took me years to find this grass. But here, these little lines, the very, 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 very tiny lines that appear at the base of the pyramid towards the central portion and are intermingled between the shrubbery, is the representation of grass in verse 11. He also said, bring forth, that grass is almost an insignificant height. It doesn't even really reflect on the base stone, because grass can grow up to 16 or 18 or 20 inches. So it's an insignificant height, represented as these small lines. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, and here is the grass. The herb yielding seed. Now herbs grow on shrub bushes, which can grow up to 2 or 3 feet. Well, if this fig tree over here is 16 or 18 feet, these shrubs are approximately 1/8 or 1/6 the height of this fig tree. That would be the size of the average herb-bearing bush. Now, I know that this is really hard for you to gather into your minds, because it took me 10 years of studying just this segment of the $1 bill to find the herbs, the grass, and the seed-bearing tree with the seed within itself. Number 11. Let the earth bring forth the grass. Here's the grass. The herb yielding seed. Herb is the small herbs that are distributed evenly throughout the earth and the grass, and the fruit tree. Fig being a fruit, the fruit of the fig tree. This is a fig tree, the first tree spoken about in the Bible, although this is not where the word fig tree is represented. This is just a tree, but this is the fig tree that represents Jesus Christ. This is the fig tree that represents the fruit tree yielding fruit after its own kind. The fig tree yields fruit after its own kind, whose seed is in itself. The fig tree is abundant with seeds, and you can eat them, and by eating the seeds of the fig tree, you therefore distribute the figs. The birds distribute the figs, and the animals that eat the figs distribute the life force of the God, or Jesus Christ, from the figs all over the world. The seed is after his kind, after the form of the fig tree. Each seed will create a fig tree, whose seed is in itself, which we just discussed, upon the earth. And it was so. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, the Lord created a tree with a seed from the fruit of the tree, called the fig tree. The fruit is the fig from the fig tree, who has its seed within itself, and therefore is distributed by every methodology possible. Wind, the movement of soils, the ingestion of the figs and the seeds being ejected from the other end of the body. The seed, in other words, God gave a proliferating seed to spread throughout the whole world. Just like this is the most complex pictograph on the planet Earth, or part of a series of pictographs. The entire reverse of the $1 bill is part of the most complex series of pictographs ever created, maybe in the whole universe. And this is distributed like the fig, or the seeds of the fig tree, everywhere it goes. This is the most complex pictograph on earth, part of the most complex pictograph on earth, and it is no coincidence that it is the pyramid that the founders of this country, who are part and parcel of the remnant society, that which I speak about in my videos and my book, that I discovered by trying to prove the existence of God itself. This is part and parcel of the remnant society that placed the pyramid on the $1 bill as a representation of one aspect of the Lord God, but the most unique aspect of the Lord God, because it is a descendant. These people, or remnant society, are descendants from the lost colony of Atlantis. How do I know this? It's not conjecture. There are links linking these societies to one another. However, inside my mind, I know it to be factual because I have experienced it mentally by moving through different forms of consciousness through meditation. We won't get involved with how this is possible, but anybody that understands Tantric Yoga, Hatha Yoga, Zen Buddhism, anyone who understands that these methodologies bring you to a different state of elevated consciousness understands how natural knowing can bring you information without having to read a book necessarily. You can just stumble upon this wealth of information. It's called the Akashic Records. It's called the Cosmic Consciousness. It's called the Buddha Consciousness. It's called the Christ Consciousness. It's called natural knowing, ladies and gentlemen. It's possible. It's what the entities that are controlling this society don't want you to know. And ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I have to tell you, It's time for me to get a bigger camera.